On Friday the 17th of January, just earlier this year, a 20-year-old woman named Heaven McGee was last seen in the 8800 block of Thermal Street in Oakland, California, after telling her friend that she was headed to Hayward. But little did anybody know at the time that she would mysteriously vanish without a trace. A young woman with her whole life ahead of her, Heaven was known to frequent areas such as Stockton, Lathrop, San Jose and San Pablo. But after checking these areas with no luck, Heaven's family decided to report her missing to the Lathrop Police Department. However, her case wasn't officially transferred to the Oakland Police Department until January 26th, meaning that valuable time had already been lost in the investigation. So, as days turned into weeks, with no signs of Heaven, her loved ones grew desperate for answers, eventually leading the Oakland PD to issue an official missing person report, fearing that there was a strong possibility that Heaven could have been trafficked. But despite the increased effort from authorities, after 2 months of searching, Heaven remains a missing person, leaving her family desperate for answers as they are only left to wonder. What really happened to Heaven McGee? And could she be Oakland's next victim of human trafficking? Heaven Desiree McGee, otherwise known as Millie, was born on the 4th of March in 2004, growing up in Oakland, California, where she was surrounded by her loving family and a close-knit community. From an early age, Heaven was known for her bright personality, strong-willed nature, and ability to bring people together. As she grew older, Heaven developed a passion for connecting with others, often spending time with friends and loved ones, as she was always looking to build relationships and create meaningful experiences. However, as she entered adulthood, something seemed to change. For reasons unknown, she became more withdrawn, limiting her communication with friends and family. Some even noticed that her once vibrant presence had dimmed, though it wasn't clear exactly why. According to those closest to her, Heaven had also started to show signs of unease, sometimes expressing concerns about her safety. While there were no immediate indications of danger, those who knew her best couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. But despite any lingering worries, Heaven still had ambitions for her future. She had dreams, aspirations, and goals that she hoped to achieve. But as time went on, the concerns surrounding her behaviour grew stronger. Up until that fateful day in January, when she would suddenly vanish without a trace. On Friday the 17th of January, Heaven McGee was last seen in the late afternoon in the 8800 block of Thermal Street in Oakland, California. That morning, just like any other, she likely woke up with plans for the day ahead. Whether she had a full agenda or just planned to relax, no one could have expected that this would be the last time she would be seen. Perhaps she scrolled through her phone, checking messages from friends or family, or maybe she played her favourite song while getting ready as she put on her white jacket, brown pants and black shirt, the very same outfit she would later be reported wearing at the time of her disappearance. But at some point, what we do know is that she mentioned travelling to Hayward, though the exact purpose of her trip remains unknown. Did she have plans to meet someone, or was she simply looking for a change of scenery? But either way, at approximately 5 PM, this was when she was spotted by a witness in the 8800 block of Thermal Street, with nothing seeming to be out of the ordinary at the time. However, after this sighting, the details surrounding what happened next grow hazy. No confirmed communication, no trace of where she might have gone next, absolute silence. So, as the evening crept in and hours passed with no word from her, concern began to grow amongst her family, eventually leading them to make the bold decision to report her missing to the Lathrop Police Department. On Wednesday, the 22nd of January, 5 days after Heaven McGee was last seen, her family reported her to the local police. But despite the urgency, it wasn't until Sunday the 26th of January that the Oakland Police Department officially took over the investigation. The delay in transferring the case between departments caused significant concern among Heaven's loved ones, who feared that precious time had already been lost. During this period, potential leads may have gone cold, and critical evidence could have been overlooked. But once the Oakland Police Department assumed responsibility, they issued a public plea for assistance, sharing Heaven's description and last known whereabouts. During this announcement, she was described as a 20-year-old black woman, approximately 5 feet tall, weighing around 140 pounds with black hair and brown eyes. She was last seen wearing a white jacket, brown pants, and a black shirt. It was shortly after this that investigators learned that Heaven had mentioned travelling to Haywood on the day she disappeared. However, the purpose of her trip still remained unclear, and efforts to trace her movements yielded limited information. Despite the public appeal, however, tips were scarce, and the investigation faced numerous challenges. The initial delay in reporting and case transfer hindered the timely collection of surveillance footage and witness statements. As days turned into weeks, the lack of new leads left Heaven's family in a state of anguish, grappling with the uncertainty of her fate. But just as it seemed all hope was lost in the search for Heaven McGee, an update would soon be released by a reliable media source that would seem to change everything. On Monday the 17th of March, On Patrol Missing aired a gripping segment about the disappearance of Heaven McGee, which raised concerns about the possibility of human trafficking being involved. During this segment, Heaven's family shared heartbreaking details about her case, shedding light on key aspects that had previously been overlooked by authorities. The interview revealed that Heaven, who had been reported missing at the beginning of 2025, was last seen leaving a friend's house in a neighbourhood known for its high traffic of individuals. It was a detail that had gone unnoticed by many, but for her family it suggested a far more sinister possibility. What struck a chord with viewers was the revelation that Heaven had been spending time with someone in the days leading up to her disappearance, someone whose background remained murky at best. No concrete information could explain the connection, but the family's fears were evident, as they questioned whether or not Heaven was with someone who could have been involved in something dangerous. The idea that human trafficking could be a factor quickly gained traction among those following the case. Evidence of Heaven's possible involvement, coupled with the unexplained absence of certain individuals in her life, seemed to point towards this theory. However, with little action from local law enforcement, Heaven's family found themselves scrambling for answers. One particularly unsettling detail that came to light during the interview was that Heaven's cell phone had been turned off shortly after her disappearance, and attempts to reach her had gone unanswered. The lack of communication only deepened the mystery, as her family had reached out to the police on multiple occasions, but there were few signs that the investigation was moving forward with the urgency it required. So as the segment concluded, Heaven's family expressed frustration at the lack of progress in the case. They insisted that the public continue to share Heaven's story and help bring attention to her disappearance, hoping that pressure would finally lead to new information, or better yet, Heaven's safe return. Until then, Heaven McGee's case remains unsolved. On Patrol Missing continues to keep her story in the public eye, urging viewers to stay vigilant and report any potential leads. But the question remains, what truly happened to Heaven McGee? And could human trafficking really be the key to unlocking this heartbreaking mystery? Now, unfortunately, as far as the official investigation goes, this is all we know for now. But thanks to the continued dedication of Heaven's family, as well as numerous charity groups such as the Black and Missing Foundation, who have been posting updates to the case as new evidence comes to light, the story has continued to remain in the public eye. So with this in mind, we have to stay positive that it will only be a matter of time before the truth is revealed, providing Heaven's family with the answers they deserve, and hopefully even leading them to reunite with their loved one once and for all. However, given that Heaven McGee has now been missing for over 2 months, alongside the disturbing claims that surround her case, I can't help but feel that the likelihood of her safe return is only growing weaker as the weeks pass. So with that, let's get into some of the potential theories. Now, just before I dive into the theories themselves, I do understand that they can be difficult and distressing to hear, especially for those who are close to the victim. So I will do my best to try and handle these theories with the utmost respect, refraining from delving into any painful specifics. But with this in mind, one theory that has gained traction among the public is the possibility that Heaven McGee could have been met with foul play, either at the hands of someone she knew or potentially by a stranger. What we do know for sure is that Heaven was last seen near Oakland, California, a city that has struggled with high crime rates and, unfortunately, a history of cases involving crimes against women, often going underreported or inadequately investigated. Heaven's sudden disappearance, with no clear evidence pointing towards her whereabouts, raises the concern that she may have encountered someone dangerous, whether familiar or unknown, who could have potentially harmed her. There are also troubling rumours surrounding Heaven's disappearance, particularly the possibility that she may have been in contact with someone who could have been a potential suspect. A key point that has been discussed is that Heaven was reportedly seen spending time with someone who might not have had her best interests in mind. If this person was involved in her disappearance, they could very well be the key to unlocking the mystery, and law enforcement should be looking into this connection with more urgency. Moreover, considering the timeline and the lack of action from authorities early on in the investigation, it's possible that the delay in following up on leads could have allowed any potential perpetrators to cover their tracks. If foul play did occur, the lack of progress could have made it easier for whoever was involved to go unnoticed, which could be why Heaven is yet to be found. But in addition to the possibility of foul play, there have also been several unconfirmed sightings of a woman matching Heaven's description in various areas around Oakland. These sightings have been relatively consistent, and although we can't say for sure that they are of Heaven, the idea that she could still be out there raises many questions. However, if for argument's sake we say that these sightings are accurate, what would that mean for her case? Well, another theory which seems to be the most prominent is that Heaven may have been trafficked by a local group who operate in and around Oakland, California. Evidence that she was last seen in areas with high crime rates and transient individuals, as well as the lack of communication and the unexplainable circumstances surrounding her disappearance, suggest that human trafficking could be involved. Not to mention the latest statements from the investigating police department, who offer human trafficking as the most likely scenario. Also, her family's concerns about Heaven potentially being with someone dangerous before her disappearance have led many to believe that she may have been targeted by traffickers. This theory is also further backed up by the prevalence of missing young black women who keep being snatched from Oakland and surrounding cities. In fact, some of the details of Heaven's story remind me of another case I covered a few weeks back, involving another young black woman named Jahnay Bryan, that also went missing in California, never to be seen again. So just before I continue with the human trafficking theory, I think it would be useful to spend some time analysing this case in relation to Heaven's, as I believe there are some glaring similarities that need to be considered. So, on Wednesday the 16th of October in 2024, a 23-year-old Cornell University graduate named Jahnay Bryan was last seen near the 2000 block of West 8th Street in Los Angeles before she would mysteriously disappear. A bright and ambitious young woman, Jahnay had expressed concerns about her safety in the months leading up to her disappearance, even telling a friend, "If something ever happens to me, please find me." That same day, she also sent an unusual email to her ex-boyfriend, where she mentioned a potential marriage and claimed to be in contact with the Commissioner of the Department of Water Management. So rightfully concerned by her strange behaviour, and as several weeks passed with no confirmed sightings of Jahnay, her sister finally decided to officially report her missing to the LAPD. However, by the time the authorities issued an ebony alert on the 19th of November, over a month on from her initial disappearance, crucial time had already been lost, meaning that to this day, just like in the case of Heaven McGee, Jahnay Bryan still remains a missing person. So with this case in mind, one of the most chilling theories to emerge is the possibility that the two young women may be part of a larger coordinated human trafficking operation in California. Despite the distance between their disappearances, both cases share disturbing similarities that have led investigators and the public to consider the idea that they could be victims of the same trafficking ring. Both Heaven and Jahnay were reportedly in contact with individuals who, according to their families, could have been involved in criminal activities. Heaven's family expressed concerns that she was with someone potentially dangerous before she disappeared, whilst Jahnay had been staying with someone in Los Angeles who could have been part of a similar network. The lack of clarity around the identities and backgrounds of these individuals could point to a larger, more organised trafficking ring that targets vulnerable individuals. In both cases, the women's phones were either turned off or lost contact after their disappearances. Heaven's phone went silent shortly after she went missing, and Jahnay's family reported that she also stopped responding to her calls. The sudden lack of communication in both cases raises the theory that they may have been forced into a situation where they are unable to reach out for help, a common tactic used by human traffickers to maintain control over their victims. In addition, reports have surfaced in both cases that these women were seen in areas with high crime rates and transient populations, or in other words, places known to be hotspots for human trafficking. Oakland, with its proximity to major urban areas and known for its ongoing struggles with organised crime, may have been a central hub for these criminal activities. The notion that Heaven and Jahnay could have been trafficked into or through Oakland would explain some of the recurring sightings that have been reported in similar locations. But to add to this theory, Oakland has long been known for its connection to human trafficking, given its proximity to major cities like San Francisco and Los Angeles, as well as its access to ports and highways. So Oakland could be a key location where traffickers move their victims. Another point to add is that the traffickers may have targeted young women from different areas and brought them to Oakland to be trafficked. Heaven, who disappeared under mysterious circumstances in 2025, and Jahnay, who was last seen in LA in 2024, could both have been lured or forced into this trafficking ring, which could span multiple cities and potentially even involve a network of people. In today's digital age, social media plays a significant role in luring vulnerable individuals into these trafficking situations. The fact is, both Heaven and Jahnay had social media presences, and therefore their disappearances could have been facilitated by people they met online or through acquaintances. This online connection could have served as a bridge to Oakland, where traffickers prey on those looking for opportunities or those already in unstable circumstances. But to add further fuel to this theory, both cases have been met with frustrating inaction from local authorities, who have been slow to follow up on key leads or to connect the dots between the two cases. This lack of urgency, combined with the absence of concrete evidence, raises questions about why the cases haven't been prioritised more. This may hint at a larger systemic issue where trafficking rings are operating under the radar, unnoticed or unaddressed by law enforcement. Another point to mention is that if Heaven McGee and Jahnay Bryan were both trafficked through Oakland, their cases may be part of a larger pattern of young women from diverse backgrounds being targeted in similar ways. The fact that their disappearances share several key traits, including potential connections to dangerous individuals, adds weight to the theory that a human trafficking operation could be at play. So, if their cases are in fact connected, this could help expose a larger trafficking network operating in Oakland and beyond. After all, there are many more victims that have been going missing in Oakland in recent years. But in every case, their families are urging the public to continue sharing their stories and to remain vigilant, hoping that this theory may lead to new information that could bring both young women and potentially others back home. The unsettling possibility that both Heaven McGee and Jahnay Bryan could be victims of the same organisation underscores the urgent need for a more thorough investigation and a more concerted effort to raise awareness of the dangers that these women face. Anyway, on that note, I think I'll leave this video here. But as always, if you have any other theories of your own which you think may help explain what really happened to either Heaven McGee or Jahnay Bryan, please leave your ideas in the comments down below and I'll do my best to get back to you. But until next time, thank you so much for watching and make sure to subscribe to the channel for updates on these stories. Also, if you found this video interesting, feel free to check out the playlist on screen now, which covers the many other cases of young black women who continue to go missing in recent years, many of which have suspiciously strong ties to the dark practice of human trafficking.